Good morning, YouTube. I'd like to show off the latest rifle, and this is not a Marlin. I know what you're probably thinking. Yes, it is. It's a Marlin 336. Actually, it's not. I'm hoping you can read the writing here. If you'll notice, it's a Glenfield. It's a Glenfield Model 30. Now, to those who don't know what a Glenfield is, Glenfield was essentially a cheaper version of Marlin firearms. And when I say cheaper, the quality wasn't any different as far as the mechanics. This gun mechanically is identical inside to a Marlin 336. The difference is the wood. And that's the only difference. It's still got the same tang or the same receiver where it's drilled and tapped right from the factories. You can put a scope on it. It's still got the same setup here for like a Williams or a Lyman receiver sight. It's still essentially the same gun, but the stock was different. And what they did was they went with a birch stock. And as you can see, I actually just got done refinishing this. It was a lighter blonde color, and so I went with a slightly darker brown color. And the Marlin, or the Glenfield Model 30, was a gun sold slightly cheaper in Sears, Montgomery Wards, and other hardware stores. Occasionally Walmart. Walmart had, each one had their own slightly different version. And this, again, they call this the Model 30. And the 30 has this wonderfully nice half magazine, which I mean, as soon as I saw this gun, price was right. I looked at it, and the fact that this gun was made in 1970, it's got no crossbolt safety, and of course it still has the same famous Marlin rifling. It's not the Valor style rifling, it's their micro groove rifling that they put in a lot of their guns until the 90s. And a lot of people say, well, you can't shoot cast bullets with those because the rifling is not deep enough. You have to oversize the bullet, make sure the bullet's very hard, and use a gas check. And yes, you can shoot gas bullets, and they shoot just fine. I know many people who've cast their own bullets, and it works perfectly. But why did I get this gun? Well, I've always had a liking for the earlier Marlin 336s. Now, the Marlin 336 goes back as far as the early Marlin 1893 rifle, which was in .30-30 and a couple other calibers. And in 1936, they changed that gun, and it became the model 1936. And that lasted only for a couple of years, which became the Marlin 36. And then in 1948, the 336 came out. The difference between the 93, the 36, the 1936, the big difference is the bolt. Now you notice the way the bolt is set up here. The 93, the 1936, and the 36 had a flat bolt, and this is more cut out, and it's a round bolt. This changed the design. This made it a better gun. It made it stronger. I mean, the early Marlins were still strong. They were a very nice gun, but this made it better. And of course, for those of you who've ever shot a Marlin, and I've had many Winchesters, I've had many Marlins over the years, to me the Marlins were always a smoother action. They just always were. I've never seen a Winchester 94, and I've had 1894s, I've had saddle ring carbines, I've had pre-64s, I've had post-64s. The last one I own, the newest Model 94 Winchester, was made in 1993. None of them could keep up as far as how smooth my Marlins could. And these guns, for the most part, they're starting to find a following, mostly because a lot of people don't want to shoot the newer Marlins. They don't like the newer Marlins. The crossbolt safety was a turnoff, but that's been around since the 80s. Crossbolt safety in the Marlins came out in 85 or 86. So that's been around a while. The biggest reason are the quality control issues you hear coming out of the new Marlin guns ever since Remington took them over. And these guns, these older guns, don't have that. These guns are absolutely, the quality is perfect. It's a beautiful gun. They're easier to take apart. They to me, if the old saying was, a lot of the old timers I talked to when I was first getting into these guns, the Winchesters were the guns you collect. The Marlins were the guns you want to hunt with, that you want better accuracy. You hunted with the Marlins. You shot a Marlin. Once you started with shooting a Marlin, once you realized how nice they were, the Winchesters are just not quite the same. Not saying the Model 94 is not a great gun. It's a phenomenal gun. I've had many of them. They're a great gun. You can't kill them. I don't know about the new ones. I know the older ones. You know, even the post 64 guns. You know, they're not as nice as the pre 64s quality wise. They're still a good gun. To me, they're light years ahead of anything they're making now. I looked at a Mossberg 3030 recently, and it looks like a Winchester. It looks like a traditional lever action. You look at the gun up close, the action is not nice. It just doesn't seem like it's well built. It seems like a cheaper, tinny version. It almost reminds me, back in the 30s and the 40s, they used to have guns called El Tigers. They were Spanish copies of the Winchesters. It reminds me of an El Tiger. They would shoot, they would function, and most times they work, but they weren't great. That's what the Mossbergs remind me of. To look at them, they're nice, they're great, but for the money, I will find a used Winchester or a used Marlin before I buy a new Mossberg, just because I know the quality of them. So, what is this gun going to do for me? Well, this gun is eventually, when I get back into deer hunting, especially some of the places I want to go are open field. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, you picked the wrong gun. You picked the wrong caliber. 30-30 is not an open field round. It is, depending on the field. It's 200 yards is about the distance. And I don't care what anyone says, I've seen deer killed at distance with 30-30s. I know people have done it. I'm going to do a separate video on the 30-30 round itself. And you will be surprised at some of the facts about the 30-30 that just seem to have been lacking. But this gun is getting a Skinner sight. It's on the way. They call it an express sight. It's a little lower than their normal receiver sight. I've had them before on a couple of Marlins. They're a great sight, Skinner sights, for the money you're paying for them. They're cheaper in most cases than the Lyman. You don't have to drill any holes, especially for this gun. It just fits right on the top. And their quality is exceptional. You can get them upwards of $100 more. And the nice thing is, if you wanted to put a scope on this gun, which I'm not going to, but if you wanted to, there's no holes to drill. That's an advantage the Marlin has over the Winchester. There's no holes. Now, everybody's like, well, gee, yeah, but it's not really a Marlin. Yes, it is. This is a Marlin in every way, shape, or form, except for the birch stock. Now, birch is actually a denser and harder wood than walnut. So, in reality, it's probably a better wood, but it was not as expensive as walnut. It doesn't have the grain. Although you can see by this early, you can see with this stock. When's the last time you saw birch stock with that type of figure to it? Look how beautiful that is. Now, of course, that's been refinished with 4 coats of True Oil, but look how beautiful the finish is and how nice the grain is for a birch stock. And it's going to get a rifleman sling. I'm going to try out the new Galco rifleman sling that was designed and put together by Richard Mann. And that's probably what I'm going to do with it, and then I'm going to start shooting for it, and then I'm going to handle it for it. I've got some factory ammo, and that's the nice thing about 30-30s. Factory ammo is still pretty cheap. I have some ammo here for it. I'm not going to shoot it until I get the sight on it. There's no sense in doing all that until I want this gun where I'm going to get it. I'm probably going to get a cartridge sling for it. I've seen a few leather ones around $30 or so. Most of the ones I have to be careful because of the sling, but that's probably where I'm going to go with that. Other than that, I'm going to shoot it, and you know, the other nice thing about these guns, these are great, like scout rifles. If you're not into ARs, these guns really can put out rounds in a hurry. Now this one, again, only has the half mag, so it's down to 4 rounds instead of the 7, but you know what? I'm not overly concerned about things like that. The nice thing about the half mag, the gun is lighter. It doesn't have the balance is so much better than a gun without that. If you've ever shot a gun with a half magazine, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The half mag makes a difference. Plus, there are no barrel bands. This is just a normal, it's just a cradle, and that holds the forearm on. There's no barrel bands here. A lot of times you get a lever action rifle with a full mag tube. Sometimes the accuracy is great. You've got to lighten up those barrel bands. You've got to change the adjustment on them, loosen them or tighten them. However, this gun doesn't have that because of the half mag. So, once that stuff gets here, I'm going to be rejoining probably the local rifle range that's here. So you're going to get some better range shots when I start that. I'm hoping to get into that by the next month. I'm hoping to have the site here within a week or so. And then we're going to start working on this gun, and we're going to go from there. So, there it is. The Glenfield Model 30 and 3030 Winchester. Have a good day, folks.